Hey, what's new and exciting? It's Kevin O'Shaughnessy here, and in today's lesson I'm going to share with you a few techniques that you can use when you want to maintain a single picking orientation through complicated licks. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Please feel free to have a look around. I post videos on guitar technique and music production and songwriting, so if that sounds interesting to you, please consider subscribing and remember to hit the notifications bell so that you can be kept up to date when I post new content. My goal is to help you find your voice a little quicker and with a bit more confidence and a lot less confusion. So let's get going. So I've demonstrated licks that use one picking orientation or another. I've also demonstrated licks that use both orientations. And today I want to share with you some techniques for what you can do if you've got a lick that should use more than one picking orientation, but you only want to use one. In a previous video, I used a simple pentatonic lick that used downward pick slanting on the way up, upward pick slanting on the way down. And today we're going to talk about how you can take that lick and turn it all into downward pick slanting if that's your preference. Here's the lick in question. So you probably noticed that because of the odd number of notes on the high E string, that's where I need to change picking orientation from downward pick slanting to upward pick slanting in order to finish the lick. But like I said, what if we want to keep it downward pick slanting throughout the whole thing? Well, what we need is a way to force the picking direction change. A very simple way to do that would be to add a pull-off at the top of the lick, like this. So you can see that by adding that pull-off, I keep an even number of picking strokes, not an even number of notes, but an even number of picking strokes on that string. Therefore, I can continue with downward pick slanting. One thing that might seem a little odd, though, is the bend at the end of the lick. When I played it the first time, I was able to hit that bend with a downstroke, which, because I'm pushing up on the string, is a very natural way to do it. I'm pushing up this way, and the pick is coming down. They meet in the middle, and it sounds the note. But this time I'm pushing up on the string and kind of chasing it with the pick, so that can kind of feel a little strange. So just like we used a pull-off at the top of the lick, we can use a hammer-on at the bottom of the lick and force the picking change back so that we can hit that bend with a downstroke. Let's break this down a little further. First, I ascend the scale, picking every note. Now I use a pull-off to force a picking direction change. Now I can continue down the scale. Now I use a hammer-on to force another picking direction change. Now, as I bend the note, I can strike the string with a downstroke and make the bend more comfortable. And if I put it all together again, it looks like this. Hammer-ons and pull-offs are really great problem solvers when it comes to picking technique. Not only is it a cool phrasing tool, but you get the added benefits in cases like this where you can use it to force a picking direction change to make the whole lick more comfortable. It's really two for the price of one, which is awesome. Let's say you don't want to use hammer-ons and pull-offs and you want to maintain the integrity of the lick by picking every note. This is where position shifting can come in handy. Now, a lot of times if you're looking at instruction books or maybe similar videos or even your own instructor, I know I've given this advice several times myself, you might hear that whatever fingering you use on the way up, you want to do the same thing, or rather the reverse, on the way down. Now, this is great advice to a point. It's great for developing your independence in your fingers. On the way up, you'll be leading with your first finger. On the way down, you'll be leading with your fourth finger. And that's a challenging exercise. You definitely want to develop that. But a lot of times in music, we don't have to be restricted to that. There is an economy of notes. There's economy of motion in a situation like that where you're using one scale fingering up and down. It does eliminate a certain thought process. But if it doesn't work for the lick, it doesn't work for the lick. So why not bust out of the position and make it work? Because of the redundancy on the guitar, in other words, there's more than one place to play the exact same note, I can kind of have my cake and eat it too. Check this out. So let's look at why this works. Remember, the problem with this lick was that there was an odd number of notes on the high E string. Well, by taking this G from the B string and moving it to the E string, I've now created a 4-note pattern, even notes, downward pick slanting. Now I can switch strings with ease. Then shift back into my original position and bend the note to end the lick. Again, the whole thing looks like this. Now let's say you're not actually interested in picking every note, but you just want to create a different sound. Position shifting is still a good way to do this because you can accentuate that shift with slides, like this. So once again, I ascend, picking every note. Then I play the next 2 notes, I pick the first one and slide into the second one. Then I pick the next 3 notes, slide into the next note, then do the bend. And again, the whole thing looks like this. Now, if your natural inclination is towards upward pick slanting, then you can use the same techniques to force those picking direction changes, just like we did with downward pick slanting. If you're learning songs by other artists, your version may or may not sound like the originals, depending on how they orient their pick during those licks. However, it could be a great way to put your own stamp on them. If you're writing your own music or coming up with your own solos, your principal picking orientation is going to become part of your style. How you choose to overcome some of the challenges of changing strings are going to be part of how you phrase your music, and that's what's going to make it interesting. As you can see, there are a lot of ways to skin a cat. There's no right way to do it, there's no wrong way to do it, there's no one way to do it. It's a combination of all of the techniques. So my hope here is that you'll be able to take the stuff that I've shown you in these past few videos and be able to start figuring out what your natural tendencies are. If you can figure out, for example, do you primarily like downward pick slanting or do you primarily like upward pick slanting? Do you switch into 2-way pick slanting? If you can figure out what that is, you can start to develop your own style. You can start to work with those tendencies instead of against them. So I hope you found that useful. If you did, please consider subscribing and remember to check the description below. I have links to related videos. I also have a link to a downloadable PDF which has a transcription of the licks demonstrated here. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments and I'll be sure to answer them. In the meantime, I'm Kevin O'Shaughnessy and I'll see you in the next video.